Especially George Mark.
Right, good morning, everybody. Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council. We'll get underway with the formal part of the proceedings, and we'll start first of all, please, with Karakia, Councillor Brown.
Here to fulfilling monument. Tomikia te o whāsu tangata, tātai te runga, tātai ki raro, tātai aharau. Premier, Louis.
Thanks, Sarah. Next item on the agenda is apologies. There are none, because I believe we're all here.
Nothing to do with policy for early dispatch.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Apologies for the early dispatch.
Yeah, and Cheryl as well.
And Cheryl.
We're still going, was that 4 o'clockish or thereabouts? Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And then now we can start. Oh, moved and seconded, right, I'll move it then, seconded by Stu, all in favour? Against, carried, thank you. Now we'll move on to the public forum part of our meeting, and Peter Dimmock and Leon von Boxcow, all about plan change 23. Welcome, Peter, you know the drill.
Yes, thank you.
5 minutes, there may be some questions.
5 minutes, yep.
Yep.
I realise I've got a very full agenda, so I'm only going to take 5 very brief minutes, okay? Leon can't be with us, so I'm just going to give us a start back to here. 35 at the moment. So it's agenda item 24, on page 284 of your agendas. This is a private plan change request to rezone the site at the intersection of Springvale Road and State Highway 8 to industrial. So I represent the Hartley Road Partnership, who are the requesters, who are essentially the Van Bostel family, who are a long-established local family in Clyde, who own this land for many decades. So this is something of a bit of a no-brainer, really. It was previously zoned industrial and Vincent district plan. For some reason it didn't come through to the Hobbiton district plan. Clyde is the only town in South Otago without any zoning plan at all, even places like Paddy Road. It's easy got industrial and set Clyde. So it's a bit of an anomaly. It's the ideal site, but beside State Highway and a rural collector road. It's away from many residential areas. It's a really perfect site for this sort of activity. There's a proven demand for industrial land in Clyde, which we established by a economic report from an expert. The site can be serviced, and all costs of this are going to be borne by the question. So the council under the RMAs have very limited options to develop and refuse to adopt notification, and I'll just run through it very briefly. The request is frivolous or vexatious, which it's not. The substance of the request has already been considered within the last 2 years, which it hasn't been. It's not in accordance with standards or management practice, which it is. And the request is not being considered with Part 5 of the RMA, which is the purpose and principle of the Act. And the district plan has been operated for more than 2 years, so we really haven't got a lot of options to turn this down. Okay. Therefore, I respectfully ask that you accept your principal policy planner's recommendation. That's option 1, and accept the request to receive the notified. Just one little point I need to make is that by agreeing to this, you're not in any way enforcing the request or approving or anything like that. You're just approving a further processing of the questions.
Thank you, Peter. Any, no knowledge of why it was dropped from Vincent County to the operative plan? But I'm not one of life's mysteries. Any questions for Peter? Right, thanks, Peter. We'll pick up that agenda item later on this morning before the lunch break. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jerry Eckhoff. Welcome. You definitely know the drill.
Sorry, Jim?
You definitely know the drill. About 5 minutes, and we may have some questions for you.
Suggesting I'm a regular attender, I'm not really, but
No, just
And
additionally,
it's
no.
just when the issues arise, Chairman, that I think are important. Good morning. I have to say that, in fact, my wife says, don't mention the fact that 5 minutes is grossly inadequate to address some of the issues that you wish to address. So I won't, I guess. There's a number of things, Chairman, that I think, in talking with members of the community, and I have a regular occasion, weekly occasion to do that. First thing is I'm not sure whether the council fully recognises the demographic that we live in Alexandra. I don't think there is another area that is so reliant on superannuation. We're not a wealthy area. And with the rate increases that we seem to be put in front of us, we have no option but that to pay. Is just so terribly difficult for so many people. I think it's a consideration that has probably not been given enough consideration. The other issue that I'm and again, just very, very briefly mention that, the other issue is, and I stand corrected here, but as representatives of this region, sorry, this district, the many who are key figures pretty largely in this, and I know it's a regional council issue in large part, but this is impacting on our district in an enormous way, potentially. Has the council had economic reports as to the impact on what have we got? We've got the fruit industry, we've got the farming industry, we've got potential industries that we haven't even considered. I think of hydroponics, for example. There's all sorts of opportunities that present themselves with the change in our area. Not to mention, of course, the growth that we've got here, which is huge. So my question is, should this district council allow the regional council to develop its land and water policy in isolation? My answer is no. You absolutely need to have significant input all the way through, and that I don't believe has happened. Again, I stand corrected. I might have missed quite a bit of stuff. I guess the main reason I'm here was I attended with a friend and a colleague of mine the meeting in Cromwell regarding this interesting word, districtisation. Some call it the advent of socialism. But it's an interesting concept, and one I think that needed a lot of explanation and discussion. Unfortunately, that meeting, we had a 40-minute lecture from the mayor, and the then mayor, as to what he felt. And the tenor of the meeting was, in my view, a lot of concern coming out of Cromwell about the endowment land that they have up there. And we were told, as members of the audience, well, forget about it, the reserve endowment land, can't touch it. I knew that it was wrong. He was wrong about that. So I got a couple of screenshots, I think it's called, of the Act. And indeed, you can use that land with the minister's acquiescence, the minister's agreement. I'm assuming, Councillor Gillespie, that that land was given to Cromwell as a result of the Clyde Dam drowning.
Nope. No endowment land in Cromwell came out of the Clyde Dam. It all predates 1900.
It does. Okay. Well, the numbers that were talked about at that meeting surprised me. They're pretty massive. And I thought, well, the biggest single problem, I think, in my opinion, that we face in this country is younger people getting a stake in our society. Not about my vintage, or indeed some of you. It's about the younger people, the tradies, the guys coming in, the families wanting to establish themselves and paying 400,000 for a section. Really? With all the land that we've got available? I just can't figure it. So I rang an old, well, you probably wouldn't call me a friend, but Dr. Mike Reid was one of the people in Wellington, the local government of New Zealand that I have enormous respect for, and spoke to him probably for about 20 odd minutes about this, and he encouraged me to come to a meeting and promote the concept of using endowment land for first home buyers. Not speculators who get a little bad press these days or other buyers, but for those who are coming into the area with this growth. How can they possibly afford $400,000 for a section and then build a house? $5,000 a square. It is just massive money. The only people that benefit from that are the banks.
Thank you, Jerry. You need to wrap up, please.
I'm sure there'll be lots of you asking for an extension of time. No, all right. That's my earlier point, of course, Chairman, that, you know, we can't have a proper discussion. Was it Councillor Brown who made some comment in the paper the other day about engagement with the public? You're here too.
Yeah.
So, all right. But if anybody's interested, that's the act. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. And I would encourage you to consider whether you should leave New Zealand, which would be great to see, on these sorts of issues. It's a social issue, and it's for the young and it's for the future. It's not for me. So,
Thank you, Jerry. I think the key thing, just before you go, I'll just make a couple of observations on what you said, is that the endowment land in Cromwell, to the best of my knowledge, is largely, if not all, industrial zoned land. So industrial zoned land and residential thing, there'd have to be some changes take place for that. And you are quite right. Yes, this council could ask the minister to change the purpose of the endowment. That would require a resolution of the council. That's not been done to date, and I'm not aware of any plans to do that. And you can be pretty sure I'd expect that when that happens, that there'll be a fair bit of community consultation about particularly that notion.
it applies to reserve land as well,
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate your time.
So I would strongly encourage.
Sorry, before you go, does anybody have any questions for Jerry?
No, other than endowment land in our corner is very protected and understood what it means. So I think, like you and Neil said, it has to go through councils and community boards. And I know that's what it's been.
I understand all that, Councillor Duncan, but the point is, in my 6 years in Wellington, inevitably we faced omnibus bills that incorporated these sorts of issues, endowment land having the ability to turn it into something productive, really productive. And it is non-controversial, all parties just tick the box and it went through in minutes. So it can be done.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think we have video, is it? Yep. A video from Monica, I can't really pronounce her last name, who's with the National Public Health Service and wants to talk about the gambling and board venue policy. So this is a video so that it's not live and you won't be asking the questions.
My name is Monica Tavio, and I am a Health and All Policy Advisor at the National Public Health Service, Tiwai Panamu, Health New Zealand, Tufatumura. Health and All Policies is an approach that considers health impacts in decisions made outside of the health sector. For example, to tackle asthma and air pollution, important decisions and action will be needed from the housing, energy, transportation, and urban planning sectors. I regret that I cannot be with you in person today at the council's meeting, but I do appreciate having an opportunity to talk about a public health concern, which is gambling. Electronic gaming machines, or AGMs, in pubs and clubs are classified as Class 4 gambling because it's considered a high-risk, high-turnover form of gambling. AGMs are among the most harmful forms of gambling. In New Zealand, around 11% of the population experiences some form of problem gambling, and over half of regular AGM users are either at risk or already have a gambling problem. Between July 2022 and June 2023, 7 people in Central Otago self-help from the Problem Gambling Foundation. However, this number is small compared to the reality, as study indicates that only 10 to 15% of people who need help actually seeks it. This is due mainly due to stigma, reluctance, and lack of awareness of how to get this help. Furthermore, as you probably know, in Central Otago, there is no face-to-face clinical service for gambling supports, leaving some people without the access to necessary support. Gambling harm disproportionately affects certain groups, including Maori, Pacific people, Asian, youth, and low-income individuals and families. EGMs are often concentrated in socioeconomically deprived areas, which worsens the risk of harm. In Central Otago, the distribution of EGM spans area varying levels of deprivation score between 2 and 8, contributing to the regional harm. Gambling revenues used to fund communities' activities disproportionately harm deprived communities. The negative impact of gambling extends beyond individuals, affecting family, friends, and community. Financial difficulties, relationship breakdowns, emotional distress, and health problems are all common outcomes with problem gambling. There is also homelessness, criminality, and suicide that is sometimes associated with gambling. On top of that, the harms of gambling are not limited to problem gamblers. Common gambler also contribute significantly to the overall harm associated with gambling. This can be due to intoxication while gambling or aggression while gambling. The net benefit of gambling to people's quality of life is close to 0, possibly negative, according to some studies. Economically, the cost of gambling far outweighs any benefits. In the UK, some estimates suggest that the cost per problem gambler, due to increased hospitalization or clinical service, welfare, help for housing, as housing vouchers, etc., pressure put on the healthcare system, judicial system, and welfare system. This would cost approximately £3,700 per problem gambler. This represents $7,980 in New Zealand dollars. Cognitive distortions, such as overestimating one's skills in gambling, having an illusion of control about the gambling, also hinders an individual's ability to make rational decisions about their gambling. Gambling addiction has been recognized as a mental disorder. Therefore, focusing solely on individual behavior and responsibility needs to be shifted to a more preventative and populational approach. Local government have a crucial role in reducing supply and demand of EGM through policies such as caps and sinking lids. Caps limit the number of EGMs in a community, while the sinking lid reduces the availability by preventing the transfer of licenses from an establishment to another one. Research shows that these policies are effective. Caps can reduce machine numbers by 15%, while sinking lids have been shown to reduce gambling expenditure and clinical service utilization. In conclusion, addressing the public health issue of EGM is vital to protecting our communities. By reducing the availability and accessibility of EGMs through policies such as cap and sinking lid, local government can play a pivotal role in mitigating gambling harms and protecting communities. We strongly encourage the Central Otago District Council to implement a cap policy, or ideally a sinking lid policy, to systematically reduce the number of EGMs in the district. The shift will promote long-term health, community well-being, and sustainable development in Central Otago. Thank you for listening to me today. Ngā mihi.
Okay, so that's obviously in relation to the agenda item 24.12.9, the gambling or venue policy that we'll be considering later on this morning. Okay, now I just want to check in the public forum. Is there anybody else expecting to be talking today? No one's here because no, that's good. There will be another public forum after the lunch break before we do the agenda item 24.12.4, which is the council role supporting museums. Okay, that done then, I'll move on now to just, obviously we've got some formal stuff to do, and then the first agenda item we'll be considering was the extraordinary vacancy and appointment of a new mayor. For the media that are here, we expect you may want to get some photographs of what's happening. That is fine, you can do what you need to do while we do that item, and there might be a short recess after that as well, so just to let you know how that's working through. But the formalities first, item on the agenda 24.12.1 is confirmation minutes. Confirmation minutes. Yes. There's got an agenda item number. Okay. The order council meeting on the 24th of October 2024. Someone like to confirm? Tamer, Sarah, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, now we'll move to item number 1, which is the declarations of interest register. Just a reminder about the need to be vigilant, stand aside from any decision making when the conflict arises between your role as a member and the private or other external interest that you may have. Have you already got any changes to the register or to in relation to today's agenda? No? Good, thank you. Okay, so the next agenda item will be the agenda item 24.12.3, which is the report you've got for the extraordinary vacancy and appointment of a new mayor. Wayne, are you taking us through that report?
Good morning, everyone. I'll take the report as read. There's two pieces of business, I suppose, that needs to be looked at for this item. The first is the appointment of a new mayor, and then the resulting extraordinary vacancy. When we look to the legislation, it's silent on exactly how we go about appointing a new mayor. So I think the best way is to ask for nominations.
Thank you. Once we went through that process, then there's the other item which relates to the vacancy that will be created, because the appointment, as Wayne has pointed out, has to come from those councillors around this table. We'll do that after we do the process of appointing a new mayor. Any questions before we carry on? Do we understand what we're doing? Don't know if anyone's ever had to do this before. Right, so I would like to make a nomination for the office of mayor. And I do it with a fair bit of, what's the word? Looking forward to the new beginnings, but also taking us forward. And I think the person that I'm going to nominate is very capable and able to do that. So I'd like to nominate Councillor Tamer Allen for the mayor of Central Otago District, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Are there any other nominations? So on that basis, I will put the resolution, and the resolution is, Wayne?
Well, we must do A and B.
A and B, yes.
Yeah, so receiving the report, accepting the level of significance, and then it would be agrees to the appointment of Councillor Allen to the office of mayor.
Right. It's been moved by myself, seconded by Tamer. No questions? I started with T. It wasn't bad. Just wanted everybody would notice. yeah. Right. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, a bit of formal stuff now. What happens now is that I will take Tamer's declaration for the oath of office, and then we will have the presentation of the middle changes. It's not revealing anything.
No.
So I'll ask Tamer to read her declaration.
I, Tina Alley, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as Mayor of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
Would you get it for?
Right, Linda Cadogan is going to present the mayoral changes.
Yeah. I could. Right. Hei uri ahau ngā tāwhiti. I tau aku tūpuna ki runga i te omaru, ka aka mihi ahau ki taua whenua. Ka mihi ahau ki tēnei whenua me ona uri. Ka mihi au ki te maunga o raki. Ka mihi au ki te awa waitaki. Ka mihi ahau ki te iwi o te rohi kia kaitahu. Ko teime ali tēnei mihi ana kia koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou koutou. And the first thing I would like to do is thank Tim, who couldn't be here today because he is busy earning a crust in his new job. And while some of you have seen mayors come and go over the years, for many of us, Tim is all we've known in this seat. So I want to acknowledge his guidance, patience, collaboration, and lack of a giant ego that could get in the way of good work. His leadership over COVID was outstanding, as was his willingness to put all self-respect aside and wear a giant poop costume. His wisdom and his humour will be missed around this table. Thank you to all of you for trusting me to take the hot seat. It is a very special thing to be chosen by your fellow workers for this role. Our team has been the best part of my last 5 years with council, and I love having a committed, diverse bunch of buddies, and I'm thankful for the way you approach this role to collaborate for the best outcomes possible for our communities. As we see in an upcoming item, we have our work cut out for us. This is a really tough time to be in local government, but that's also because it's a tough time to be in business, in school, in a job, and in a family. We need to be passionate about making democracy work, and we'll carry on around this table despite the unusual circumstances of me sitting at this end. The challenges we face in the next 12 months are substantial. There will be a constant juggle to pay for the services we must provide, alongside the aspects that make it so enjoyable to live here. We do need to do the basics brilliantly, but we also need to provide the amenities that our people ask for. This will be an integral part of the long-term plan discussion that we have with our communities next year. On a personal note, I would like to thank Matt and the kids for supporting me. It's going to be another juggle, but lucky we're not afraid of overtime. I'm incredibly excited to be stepping up to this challenge. And thankfully, we're kicking off with something easy, museums.
Right, just a quick waiata, but can we start off with the Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi marie, kata
We'll just take a short recess while some seat swapping goes on, and then Pamela will pick up the next recommendation on the agenda. Stand out. Yeah. The key.
We just,
Yeah.
C and D to take care of in the recommendations, and D is a discussion around the vacancy that is now being created for a Vincent councillor, and whether we wish to leave that vacant or appoint somebody. Are there any views in particular around the table? Is there anything that you wanted to add to that part of it, Wayne?
Only that also an observation, which I made, and it actually works out. That this is what's going to happen after the election next year anyway. So it's essentially arriving at the same place a year early. If you want to think about it that way.
Questions or comments? Tracy?
Believe position vacant.
Yeah, well, I suppose I guess the big issue would be the cost if we went down the road of, having to do that. So, yeah, I'm with that.
Can I just clarify with Wayne about the options he talks about by appointing a member of the community or leaving the position vacant? So appointing a member, that's by election.
No,
No, it's not. So there is,
it's by you giving me a name,
yeah.
essentially.
I would certainly have the view that with what's going to happen in 12 months time anyway, it's still logical now to put it in place, but the opportunity. I haven't heard a compelling case or haven't seen one here or haven't heard of one that would make me think that we should do anything other than what's recommended.
Yes, would somebody like to move
I will.
recommendations C and D? Thank you, Neil. And second, thank you, Nigel. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Community Board Chair update.
Just
We
give
have
him
Rob.
up before.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can get Maniototo Community Board Chair online.
Yep, he's there. Can you hear us okay, Rob? Oh, you're on mute. Here we go. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Yep, okay. Right, really.
Fire away.
Can go now.
It's the connection from around.
Yeah, it could be.
Still copper wire. Copper wire.
It's a big room.
Probably a tractor fire.
There, has
I thought it was a smoke signals.
No, yep, no, there.
Carrier pigeons.
Sorry. Hello, reading with you. Yep. There he is.
Right. We
Okay,
can see you, we can hear you.
This is very small. A lot. Trap water, mate.
G'day.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Hello?
Can you
Yes.
hear us, Rob? You're good to
Yep, I
go.
can. Yep. Oh. Morning, everyone. I presume we've got a new mayor.
You
today,
do.
and who am I offering congratulations to or commiserations?
Yeah, maybe a bit of both, Rob. It's Taylor.
Well, congratulations. I hope everything goes well for you for the next year. And
Thank you.
this pack of rogues look after you all right. I had a couple of things to bring up. As you know, the flooding issues everywhere through Central Otago. I just more in Rainfully was clearing of culverts and grills. Because there's no one in Rainfully now from Fulton Hogan to go around clearing grills in this area, this sort of situation. There's a few people out doing it themselves. We've got grills that actually don't work. I spoke to the engineer when they were putting in, telling them they weren't going to work, and they don't. Culverts that probably need cleaned as to whose responsibility it is, whether the council have to go around and get the contractor to clean them, checking them, or does the contractor have to go around and check them themselves as part of their contract? What happens there? There was a house had a basement semi-flooded, and he was claiming it was a block culvert. It's probably something we can discuss at the next Minnesota Community Board meeting. Up at Naseby with this water, it's still the same ongoing problem. There's not enough storage, and the race gets dirty and they can't get clean water. It's something that needs looked at. It's probably more urgent than anything up through there. As when they're tankering water in, when you could have a dam very close to it, which is already there, cleaned out, filled with clean water, to save a lot of work by Fulton and Hogan. So they're looking at the boreholes I see on Friday, Rainfurly, to see what's going to happen there. It'll be interesting to see. I think we're meeting Patrick Keening at 2 o'clock to go and have a look. And apart from just the normal issues of council, that's about all I've got.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Rob. Has anybody got any questions? Tracy.
Rob, Tracy Patterson here.
Yep.
Just a question with regards to the, you mentioned a bigger storage. In your opinion, do you think it would be able to have bigger storage in the current site?
Yeah, well, there
Like
is an old,
deeper?
no, we don't need to make it deeper. There's an old dam right there that was used many years ago for water storage for Naseby, and I'm not sure how it worked, but it's right beside the site. I mean, it's going to cost money to clean it all up, but it can be filled from the irrigation race with clean water before one of these events happen. And then we haven't got the same issue of having to have Fulton Hogan running up and down the road all day trying to get clean water or clean water enough so Naseby can have fresh water.
Thank you. Any other questions for Rob? Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us for the
Good
update.
afternoon. Thank you.
Yes. We now move to page 49, so skipping through a little bit to discuss the service request survey and resident survey results with Deb and Paula and Dylan. Welcome.
First slideshow presentation that Wayne's gonna pull up, but in the meantime, congratulations to Mayor Allen. It's really exciting and I think the big picture on both of these reports, so this is the service request survey, the residents opinion survey. There's a lot of good news in these, so I think that's what we really need to focus on and really should be proud of. So both of these surveys are an evaluation of mostly council services, but also members. And we asked people who specifically use those services. So in the case of the service request survey, we only asked people who had actually submitted one. Not generally speaking, what people think about the process. And then the same with the resident survey, when we asked people about what they thought about services, if they hadn't used those services or if they didn't know anything about those services, then we took those out. So these numbers really reflect people who use the services. So we're trying to use our handy clicker here.
Look at this one.
Oh, there we go. User error. So these are the two banners that you might have seen when these surveys went out. The service request survey goes out earlier in the year. It goes out in about March. Back up. And the resident survey comes out shortly thereafter. So the resident request survey. Love technology. So you got that. Line here.
Try-
Sorry, mine.
Yeah, try again.
There we go. So this is the number of people that went out to, so the number of service requests we received is there. The number of those weren't emailed the survey either because we didn't have their email, it was a duplicate, or it was a CODC address. Some of the water and different teams will manage some service requests, and a lot of them were removed. With that middle amount going out and then responses we got out. So it's a pretty high number. Happy with that. 3 key questions that we asked in this survey: was the service request managed in a friendly and courteous way? And that went up this year, so we're quite happy about that. That was an increase of 3%. The next question was fast and efficient. Was it managed in a fast and efficient way? And that also went up by 9%. And then was it dealt with effectively? And that also went up by 9%. So this is really good news. This is a core part of our business here. And this really reflects the experiences that our communities have. And so it's important to acknowledge and celebrate these increases. We did ask, we ask every year if they experience any issues or problems. And this year that went up, but we're asking if you did not experience any issues. So that was an improvement in service. And then when we asked if there was anything to change, there was some comments, but overall, there was none. So we're always looking at ways we can improve that process. But I'm pretty satisfied with how this is sitting after this survey. I'll go ahead with all those. You know, I know I'm short on time, so I just sort of, I'm going to put it next to the resident survey. Because in both surveys, what we're trying to do is to improve services and change. So the resident survey follows the service request survey. They're both used for KPI reporting. The resident survey has, the big goal is to make it better. How do we improve services for our community? And so that's what's guiding this poll. If people are satisfied, if they're not, what are the priorities? Are there issues? Are there problems? And if so, what can we do? So the context of the timing of the survey is really important to take into consideration. So if you look at these dates, you know, the consultation item, the key consultation item on the annual plan was quite significant rates increase. And so shortly after that consultation closed, we went out with this resident survey. And we acknowledge that that timing is less than ideal, but we were driven by reporting deadlines for the annual report. So just keep that in mind when you look at these results. Before we get into the details of who participated, just to point out the numbers quickly. So we had 455 responses on this poll. And based on the population of our district, that is the result that you're looking at accurate to a margin of error plus or minus 4.5% with a 95% confidence level. So these numbers are pretty solid. They do mostly represent the district. There is a higher response rate from the 60+ demographic, which we've noted. So this is quite small. You probably have trouble seeing it, but we've seen it in the report already. But if you still get the bars are the current year, the line at the top is the previous year. So really only marginal change. The overall satisfaction rate, if you take all of those and just combine them into one clump, the satisfaction rate this year was 76%. The satisfaction rate last year was 80%. So it is a decrease. We acknowledge that, but it is a marginal decrease, especially considering the context that the poll was being taken. Sorry, just look back on it. Just to note that there's a couple where you don't see the line. When you don't see the line, it just means that, thank you, Mrs. Starr. When you don't see the line, it just means that those questions weren't asked last year. And then at the end, it said brief stop, where there's a bit of a gap. It sort of different from the others. That's Wastebusters and it's been closed for a year, so that explains that difference. Just to highlight, we've done a lot of things well. A lot of these things are typically done well. Probably one thing to point out here is that curbside recycling, that green bin, which is new, it's 92% satisfaction rate, which I'm quite happy with that. Again, just to point out the curbside rubbish collection. You'll remember that the red bin, there was quite a lot of controversy about going to a smaller bin. We heard quite a lot of people were upset about that. That didn't come through in this poll. So it's possibly a reminder that sometimes the loudest voices aren't the majority of voices. So there was an actual increase in satisfaction with the red bin. So I thought that was interesting. And then there's always areas where we can improve. That's never going to change. There's always, and there's certain parts of the council that, because of the nature of their work, aren't going to always make people happy. So we accept that there's always great places we can improve. So when we asked if there were problems or issues, we had less people this year saying that there were problems or issues. In terms of priority, you probably won't be surprised, the top one is water supply. So that's district wide. And then the next slide breaks it down by ward. So if you want to have a look at your own ward there.
The reuse shops becoming like the loaders.
Yeah, so
There you go.
there was a plain language review of this survey that we did in January. And so we did change a couple of the words. We don't believe it had a substantive impact on the poll, but the reuse shop was called, I think, recycling center, something like that in the previous year. But we knew from the comment, people were referring to Wastebusters when they commented on that particular topic. And so basically the reuse shop is what we're talking about there, Wastebusters. So people clearly want some version of Wastebusters to come back.
How can you have, in a lot of ways, you look at the media total, they're the same issues coming up time and time again. But yet on the Vincent and Cromwell, there are different issues each year.
I think it largely reflects the fact something unusual is happening in those places. Whereas I've spent $1 million, but nothing unusual particularly is happening. It's been dry, rain,
Can I answer that?
tractor fires. So I don't mean to be talking about that,
Yeah.
but I think that's the reality, isn't it?
But some of those are different, where the ones you'd have in the media total and our core business, I guess I'm saying, economic development, community development, car parking, they're all a bit different each time. Some aren't our core business.
We'll probably just get past this one, Dylan, in the interest of time. They're in the report. Economic development and tourism both saw increase. So we're happy to see that.
But so many of those people who responded, both of them didn't have an opinion or didn't know.
That's true.
And that's a bit of a concern, isn't it?
Yeah, so there are quite a number of people who say unsure, don't know.
Yeah.
And how we manage that has sort of varied over time. So what we've done for this report is all unsure, don't knows have been removed consistently across the board. In the past, when these two questions, tourism and economic development, when they were first added to the survey, we included the unsure, don't know, but we didn't for anything else. And so it sort of artificially brought that down. And so for consistency reasons, we haven't included them. And we haven't included them on the elected member questions, and we haven't included them on the services question.
So you've got an age group, an agenda for those unsure and don't know. Could they be the 20s to 30-year-olds? It's not sure really, but they And have we got the problem issues within one age group?
If you think it's big, bearing in mind that the overall response was about 16 plus age brackets. And in response to your question, I can see that, it does that the unsure don't know is something we can focus on as.
Yeah.
Like, how can we, like, get ourselves out there?
I think that is a bit of an indictment, I suppose, of maybe them, maybe us, I'm not sure which, because, people should know. People should feel informed. And I suppose that, it goes to, because, when you get into elected member, what half the people didn't know or unsure, really? They clearly wouldn't have voted, I don't know.
The strategy underway at the moment, maybe we'll see a drop in the unsure don't know next year, we won't know, we'll look to stand there.
We do calculate that every year, we do have that data, so if there's certain ones you're interested in, we can provide that.
Does that then, we talk about a 95% degree of accuracy or something like that, plus or minus 4.5, whatever it was, I read. If you were to go to those particular ones and go, well, half people didn't actually have a view, does that sway the accuracy as well? We're still getting a valid enough, or is it, I suppose the valid answer is, I don't know. If people don't know, I guess they just don't know, but it's just sort of.
It would be different for every question.
Yeah.
You would not know on this, but you would know on the other.
I don't know.
The accuracy is just about that measure, it could be that measure plus or minus.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Where people get their council information, this probably won't surprise you, certainly won't surprise us on the comms team, because this is where we really focus our effort. We try to find out where is it that people find information, where they want to find information, and that's where we focus our advertising. So community newspapers is number one, CRBC website, central app, and the newspapers. And we rely heavily on all those as primary sources of information. Council communications, this is always a bit of a tricky one because everyone looks at the comms team, it's like, oh, this is an evaluation of your team. But actually, in fact, this, as we know, this is about all of council, that every communication that someone has with council is council communications, whether it's on the phone or email or a letter, talking with race officers or whoever that it is in council is all part of that.
Some are quite satisfied, aren't they?
It is a reduction, and we're not surprised by that.
Trouble.
Sometimes it's the information, you get the information, but sometimes it's not the information you want, so that's what keeps you doing. So council member performance. So, we also took the unsure don't knows out of this, and again, we do have that information, if you want that, we can provide it to you. So there was a bit of a dip here. So council member performance, from 73% in 2023 to 44% in 2024. But remember the context that this was happening in. And so,
That's what makes it even more confusing, because 48% of people didn't have a view, didn't know. And yet here we were hammering people with a huge race increase, and 48% of the people responded and said, I don't have a view. Really? I don't get that. It just doesn't make any sense. Even I would have said I wasn't happy. I never did. No, I did not do the survey.
community board performance, dropped also, but not by as much. So from 71% to 58%. We can speculate on the reasons for that. They're probably a bit removed from the bigger discussion about rates, so that could provide a bit of information.
Have you gone with community boards which had the least? We've broken it down to why, because different issues in the TV and different issues in the Manitoba.
Yeah.
It would be water or speaking to spelling the name or.
In the report. I can put it in the show. Oh, yeah, sorry, citizen community board members and councilors will belong together, elected members, and the question is less about, are you satisfied or dissatisfied, but whether or not people believe that elected members are making a positive difference, which is a little bit of a different angle. So that was a pretty significant drop, specifically on that question, from 73% to 40%. So what do we do with all this information? So we put it into, a lot of these questions feed into that KPI reporting, the annual report, so you've seen a lot of it already. Sorry, you got it. We also provide the information to activity managers so that they can further dig into their specific area about what they might be able to do to improve those. It's helpful for you guys to know what community priorities are. So there's a lot of uses for this information. We think it's really important that it be done every year. But I think even though we've sort of ended on a bit of a low note, looking at all these big drops, the big picture for this survey, which is really focused on council services, the drop, there has been a drop, we acknowledge that, but it has been marginal and potentially non-existent, depending on question and a margin of error. So this was a tough year. This is a tough year for council. It was a tough year for our team, and it was tough for the community. And so that clearly comes through. And I think if it didn't come through, we would have to question what we're doing, because we will make sure that we're conveying accurate information. And this is an accurate reflection of where the community is. Any questions?
Questions, Tracy?
Agree with all the things you're saying, but I also think that it is an opportunity for us as councillors to have a look at what we do. I mean, a difference of that, however you want to slice it, and yes, it has been cut, but it still is actually that. And the community confidence is a really important thing for all of us sitting around the table. So we take that on board. It does represent 1.87% of the population of Central Otago, the survey, which is not a huge amount. So I encourage people the community to get into these surveys and actually to do more of that. Come talk to us, because this stuff we need to hear from our community. We can't do anything without hearing from them, and so we need to hear from them. So yeah, I definitely personally take that on board and think that how can I do better from my role? And I'm sure that there's other councillors that feel the same way, that how can we actually improve that so we can make better outcomes for our community. So thank you for that.
But in saying that, it's been the toughest year I've ever had to be a councillor, because you get more feedback from the people. Especially.
But some of it's not in this format. It's not in this format. We get it direct.
You know, but drop-in centres, we've had a lot more people turn up in drop-in centre or digitisation, or there was more people came to one that went to the drop-in centre. That doesn't come in the survey. But each area, like in Sally's corner, there's been people undermining the council decision on distributisation. So naturally, if it fell on the same time, it's going to have a different reading. And the topics we're faced with, whether it be the mall or hall, it affects different parts of the region at different times. But the survey captures it in the year. And I guess it's hard because it's, you look at it and think, well, should we do more? But the communication, the media are here now. The communication, we can't be any more open to communication. And people are frustrated in their own little town. They've got money, the jobs, so it's going to reflect. It's just going to wash through, and hopefully everyone's doing their bit in their corner. But it does make interesting reading, but half the people aren't happy with what council's doing.
Sure, but then there's good reason for that, because we go out and consult, we ask them to engage with us, and then when they do, we ignore what they say. So we have to be careful of saying that we want them to engage.
We need more to engage.
Do we? Because at the end of the day, we know when it came to the distributisation, we didn't listen to the majority that spoke anyway. So when I say we, I mean council as a whole.
We did listen.
But they don't see it that way.
We did listen. We just disagree with some of that information put to us.
How do we manage that then going forward? Because it's not a good look. when we ask them to engage and when they say, we're not heard, that the council is not listening to us. So how do we actually make that a better process so that they are being, is it the things that we're asking that are wrong? How are we to engage with them and listen?
Well, we can ask questions in a manner where we're going to get the answers we want to hear. That's not good consultation.
There was an opportunity when the results are put out, the decisions, the council decisions are made, that we really articulate why the council made the decisions for it.
Yeah.
So if the council's choosing to go make a choice other than what the feedback is said, there will be for that. There will be reason. And so it's just making sure that we put that across at the same time.
Well, then I think perhaps that's something that we need to put more focus on so that we still, when we're asking our community to engage with us and to respond, then if we are making a different decision, they need to have an assurance that the decision that was made here was balanced and was not just that they had not been heard.
I mean, I guess one of the issues is if the respondents are not happy, and I guess it's like probably a classic example, out of the ones in 23 and 24, the hall never came up in one of those issues, or the mall, on the footpath. So they aren't thinking about non-core services, are they things that might reflect them? Because the ones in our corner came up the same things each year. And are they unhappy with the level of service? And it was basically roads and water. Well, we just had another flood event, we've lost our roads and we've lost water. So are they saying we're not doing that well enough? But we had the respelling of the Minnetonka, which galvanised the community one way or the other, right or wrong. But if a survey was taken little out, there'd be a lot of people who would be for and against. Our figures are dropping off. So I guess it's just, our job is hard because we deal with issues whether it be water and roads out there or the hall. Some people aren't happy with that. And that's just our core business. We've got to make those decisions with information we get put on this table by the best we have, and then, you know.
I think we've got to work with our community to help their understanding develop. So don't think, and Martin said this during the district-wide funding discussions that we're having, that consultation is not a referendum. It's not a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Just because the majority of a minority say no, doesn't mean to say they'll get what they want. And I've likened that behaviour to what I was like as a child. Couldn't get my own way, so I stand on my feet. That got me a lot of places not. I think it's what we do here is got to be good governance. And we've got to find ways that we can do a better job to enable people to understand how we got to where we got to and why. If the put about the start of that at the front end was saying, when we are going out for consultation, which we just burden on our community every second month, perhaps, or even more often just about, maybe try and help them understand better about what will happen in terms of the process. But one thing I will say is that from my experience is that no matter how hard you try and do that, it's not going to stop the reaction that we got for the show running for them. So, you know, could we have done it better? Possibly. Would there still be the same issues? Absolutely. They will never go away. You did not do what I told you to do, therefore you did not listen, therefore you don't know what you're doing. You know, and that's the shame of how local government, central government works, and a cross we need to bear and be, what's the word, adult enough to better say, on the courage of our convictions to explain why we did it. And we do that quite well. Still doesn't change the view.
I understand that, but I do think that we could do better in actually explaining why, you know, I mean, something pops up on Facebook and it shows 75% and we just ignored it, you know, then it's got to be a complementing something to say why, so that then that we do keep the engagement with the community, because at the moment they're going, oh, what's important? We need, you know, we're asking them to engage, but we need to justify what we're doing then. I don't think they're hearing it. They don't know how to
when it's a controversial issue, we saw response from some of our community members here earlier this morning, where people can't accept the fact that they made a decision was made which didn't particularly go their way. I mean, my attitude is build a bridge, guys, you know. we have to move forward. You can't carry on. You're lost. And that's it. And that's one of the charges that we have to make. We make some tough decisions, and we have to accept the fact that we're not going to please everybody all of the time. That's impossible. We're going to be, by making decisions, we're going to upset or even offend some members of our community. And that's the role that we have. Time proves whether our decisions are the right ones, but at the time, we have to make them.
I think that's, sorry, have you got one last thing?
Oh, the other thing that this section of that year, just coming off a change of government in the Three Waters debate that people weren't happy on. And if you go from the census of 2018, 31% of those males over 60 turned into 50%. So one group got antier than anyone else. And that's good. Yeah.
I think that highlights Cheryl's comment, and we heard the stat the other day from the Electoral Reform League that 40% of people want more information on what councils do. We've heard clearly that we're not doing well enough from a very small percentage of our population, as Tracy says, a 1.8 something percent. But that means that we're missing a massive demographic that we'd actually like to hear from. And I think there's no hiding from those stats, and that's on us. But I would also like to highlight the really great stuff out of that report, and that the vast majority of interactions with our council team on the ground have been overwhelmingly positive, and that is a really good news story. So hopefully we can lead with that and not lead with this table stats. Recommendation is that the report be received. If somebody's happy to move that, thank you, Sarah. And seconded, thank you, Stu. All those in favour? Against? Carries. Moving. Thanks, Sarah. We're getting now to page 100, item 24.4.6, the open draft open spaces and recreation policy. Welcome, Maria and Gordon and David.
I just want to start off with a congratulations.
Thank you.
The open spaces and recreation strategy sets out a vision, objectives, and key methods for enhancing Central Otago District Council's open spaces network. So that includes the development of park types, minimum walking distances from open spaces to residential areas, design guidance for the configuration of reserves, the types of facilities to be found within different park types, and provision guidelines for greenfield developments. We carried out pre-consultation through 2 surveys, one in 2022 and one in 2023. Through that feedback received, we've used that to guide the process through the drafting of the open spaces strategy. So today we are looking for permission to take the draft strategy out for wider consultation for 1 month, starting the 7th of November. The updated draft is to be presented to council for sign-off in early 2025, and we'll be asking elected members to support us during this consultation period by encouraging the community members to engage with us on this draft. So you will receive an email today asking you to take a photo in your local park, and we're going to use that for the promotion. A few highlights from this. So through this process, it's become very, very clear that the community value our open spaces. There's been really high engagement through the pre-consultation, and our community are very eager to share their feedback on the draft. So to us, that reflects how much people value our open spaces network and demonstrates that this is an important piece of work. So we're looking forward to hearing your feedback and any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Tracy, Stu.
With the aging population and the growth in Central Otago, is 57 hectares of cemetery land enough?
So predictions, yes.
We've got it pretty well spread out. But 100 years anyway. I haven't looked back.
Well, I guess the question to that is what happens when we fill it up, have we got it, when we move, because some places are limited. Some towns have limited central space.
There's been reporting done that, so right now, data shows that for the next 100 years, we're in a good place for that, but that's something we're always monitoring. So as we notice changes and what's happening in the district, we then have to reflect on that.
And you'll note that we're doing increasing the expanding native territory, same in Cromwell, because we're getting and Clyde's not far off that next to the cemetery. It will be better in native to get it done.
100 years.
So, yeah,
I've got a couple of comments. One, I thought that you mentioned as part of the consultation will be engaging to get feedback, but I thought that this whole strategy could be a really good thing for community boards to take on. And you also mentioned that there could be areas in the parks and land that community groups could get on and do things such as native planting. And I think it'd be really great if we could really help to enable that by maybe actually showing on a map what areas we would like feedback from the community, that they could be partners with council, so that we're, rather than just saying, oh, we'd quite like the community to partner, but we're really showing them how they could partner. And because I think it's really great when you've got groups that would take the initiative to help us with our open spaces. So that was a couple of comments that I had.
Pick up on that. One of the next steps of the sort of socialising of the community wants to consider, so it'd be a good sort of question to run across the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess on the other point with community groups, we've started, Heart Mile analysis, a good example. Group.
Yeah.
That's another good example where we're partnering in focus groups to enable things to happen that wouldn't happen otherwise. Because
Yeah.
there's not resources to do that.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah. Ian.
Years consideration would be given to increasing greenway networks and providing links between parks. How are we proposing to get again?
So that's potentially when we have greenfield subdivisions. So that's how do we link the existing, I guess, residential network to the next subdivision that comes along. So there's some more road connections to from that subdivision, and within that subdivision, there possibly be a neighbourhood park or something else that do recreation. So that's what that means. The existing, and Cromwell's a good example, inclined to another greenways. This thing, so it's how we link those into subdivision, so there's not a disconnect right around connects. Yeah, so they can do that all the time.
Yeah.
So we're going to the injunction for the developers.
Yeah, that, not wrong, I know that's, we get quite a lot of those sort of connections that we need to keep.
We've got a really good base network to work with, and the mapping has highlighted that, and we just need to build on that now. The part.
So, Tracy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, on page 121 of the agenda, and I think it's page 15 in relation to the, so you've got that. It talks about, it's a definition of nature under 621 park categories. Is coastal the right word?
So that actually comes,
Is that just a mistake?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's all, that's one. Sorry, just been thinking. Yeah, and, and at page 122, and obviously Ian's just picked up on this in relation to near residential areas with good arterial roads, etc. Sorry, page 16, next page. And do they have to be, the reason why, do they have to be located near residential areas? Recently, I've been up at Napunawai in Christchurch, which is a huge sport and recreation development area. And it's not right next door to, I mean, obviously there could be, there's a, I don't know, fully aware of this space of planning, but there is an opportunity to have that type of development. So I didn't know whether by saying this, we were going to limit what we could do in the future.
So this actually comes from the Recreation Aotearoa guidelines. So this is the parks category guidelines. It is a guide, but we have set ourselves, it's 1,500 metre radius. So essentially what that's saying is our residential housing, you want to be able to walk. It's a 1,500 metre distance to get to your sport and rec park.
Okay.
And now we're actually got some sort of applications.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm spelling mistake on page 24 of the report. It should be Alexandra, not Alejandra. Sorry, I'm gonna read it. No, I didn't read it.
Did we?
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I'll just ignore that one. Sorry, where's the other one? Oh, just the maps of Shadow Creek. What is that?
Oh, tennis court.
It's
That's a random, we talked about maybe an NCA park or something, didn't we?
Yeah, it's an old museum council. When
Sorry,
I think it was a tennis court, or we rebranded it up years ago and not been used at this stage, so focus. We need it, we don't see it, but like the ice rink at open.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was similar.
I did have one more. Yep. Just the comment on using open spaces to tell our local stories, and I thought that would be a great opportunity to link in with New Zealand heritage so that we could have some outdoor telling of our history as well.
I just had a couple of questions. Are there any implications in relation to Ōkaha not being able to be involved kind of from that starting point? Or have the conversations been had and they're okay to just sort of,
Yeah, we're
if anything they can?
pretty close with this, just from a resource issue, the region's point of view, they're comfortable for us to get into a draft point of view and then put it up. So, yeah, we can continue the conversation.
Great. I'm excited that some spaces are being left for lovely photos. And as per Tracy's comments, probably just needs a final read over and reformat. Some of the graphs and things don't quite line up, or they've gone on to the next page, and page 125 around the provision, so page 19 of the draft plan. I just wondered if we needed to put a blurb in there about Lynn's land, especially where they're doing sort of planting and things like that. They do provide some stuff that we don't really have anything to do with. The land acquisition through subdivision that Ian raised, do we have the ability to specify what we want from a developer? So, for example, if they said we want to have just this section here to be made into a local playground, can we say, no, we need you to provide a greenway link, or?
Yeah, we have part of the negotiations through that stage, and we can choose not to have any of that cash, for example, which we just spend on something ourselves. So there's a whole lot of options there. It's just giving some guidance.
Cool.
Just on that, there's a bit of a fine line too, because there was a situation in Cromwell a few years ago where it was decided not to take any reserve areas and took the money instead. And then the backlash 5 years down the track from people that bought there said there's no greenways here, was surprising, I think. But I know that ever since then we've worked really closely to say, look at the bigger picture. But I think the thing about this document maybe will guide the staff going forward, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and could say no when actually someone else who lives there might say, well, actually, what about this? And you go, well, but generally we do far better, and sometimes the easy way is to take the land and bank it for what it is, because we found out from that experience how important those areas are for the communities.
And I just wondered, when we talk about the netball courts on page 156, which is 50 of the plan, and the impact of frost and ice on those and the availability, can you treat them with the same stuff that we put on the road?
I guess the options just come to cost.
Yeah,
So,
I just,
yeah.
other than that, no additional questions. Does anybody else have any other comments? Right, recommendations that we receive the report and that we approve the draft to, with the mentioned amendments, to go out for consultation. Thank you. Sarah's happy to move that. And Ian's happy to second it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
We look forward to the photos then.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and play tennis in Cherry Creek.
You might have to take your own little knife.
I live 510 metres outside the Logan one, so I'm not connected too far. Yeah, can't walk the next 10 metres, sorry.
I think there are a number of stats in there that highlight how fortunate we are here, that most people can ride their bike out their gate and go biking, or walk out their gate and not sit in the car running out to get somewhere. So, wonderful. Thanks, Maria. Gordon and David Wilding, Conifer.
So, yeah, so this is just a, I guess a reconfirmation of existing policy. It was due for review earlier in the year, and it's come up again. That hasn't been changed. It's a policy that was adopted a couple of years ago. So it's putting it out, so that's the next policy. So, yeah, approval for that.
Thanks. Good one.
So the rolling time policy was brought in and sort of immediate reaction to and it says in here that we must remove times in a single activity. If you have the ability to put stage for me, which would have taken out a lot of something that was over years. Stage in discussion with the community boards or the
So before the council, we had quite a discussion on that at the time. That's where we've ended up, and I get, yeah, we've got other sites that, Lindenburn Dam, Bootville, so and up near Alex, they do, well, after said we'd like to remove at some point in the future, but we would probably, to be honest, need to wait to get the government or something co-funding towards that, and if something else comes out real quick. So we've still got significant sites we need to deal with, and I think doing it piecemeal and the argument starts harder. It's still got seed rain, you've still got, costs and disposal costs, and then you've got a half job really. You get to do it all at once, and then you can start about and cleaning up all at once as well.
And we're talking about putting another 150,000 into the community.
There's some that but lower than but not for any other major sites, not until it's fully citizens government.
The national government, the government funded scale restrictions.
Yeah, it was,
That's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a classic case of a policy that our community don't understand. Not just our policy, but the national policy statement on these sort of things. We're still seeing a lot of community concerns coming up about that particular issue. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that they're right, but there's a really poor understanding, particularly the results of the resident opinion survey. You can kind of see why sometimes people are a bit disgruntled with certain things. It'd be really easy for us just to adopt this today, tick, move on, 3 more years. My view is that no, this should go back out to the community and say, this is working, this is why it's working, and engage with them on something that is not very well understood to try and increase that understanding. Will it change what's in here? I hope some things should change it, but because we can sit here and say staging doesn't work as well, for the reasons you point out, but there might be some other views out there that we're not getting and hearing. So I think that the best example is the recent trees that were taken down on the Bannockburn cycle track, and council copped it big time in the local rag at home about it. Had nothing to do with the council, wasn't on our land, but still comes back to this great big misunderstanding in the whole wide community about Wilding Pines. And if we can do something to try and improve that, then I think we should take that opportunity, because that's what we're here to do, in my view. So I'd like to see this policy actually don't have to do it today, but go back out for feedback, consultation, whatever. And we had the headline that says, because we don't think people get this, we're going to try and help you understand it. That's my view.
I guess if I may, well, first of all, staging it just adds cost to the rate pack. So if you want to stage things, that's fine, but by the time firms gear up and gear down and all that sort of stuff, that's cost. The second thing is our colleagues who are here from our community, doesn't matter what we say, they'll be opposed to widening pines. But the science is quite clear. The way they go across the landscape and you know, obviously doing nothing is not an option. Funding is quite expensive, but we can go out. The same people will come back and tell you, don't do it, keep it the same. And then we'll be in the same situation that Cheryl's just highlighted. You'll have to make a decision. It is a pest. It is a noxious pest. Should be eradicated. We can only do it to the funds we have. This is what the policy is saying. I think, you know, this is a pretty simple policy, this one. I'm not sure it's that complicated.
I'm not disagreeing with you one little bit, and that's not the reason for why I don't give a flying fig about people's views, but I'm saying there's a poor understanding of one of our policies that comes from further down as well. And if we can do something to increase that understanding, will it change anything? Possibly not. I'm not saying we should be staging anything at all, but if we don't take this opportunity, you're still going to have a lot of priced off people there.
There's quite a lot of work being done by the Wild and Conifer Control Group in that space, including currently developing a new website that has a lot of that information for both landowners who have wilding pines on their property and also for the general public. So maybe that is something that we could work in together with them to try and spread it further, not like Pine Seed, just to disseminate the information amongst the public, because Neil's not wrong. And I think that those trees that came down around near Bannockburn highlight that people like them for different reasons and don't understand that they are on the noxious pest list.
Actually, may have just dumped myself up to the table when we did this review. And we looked at the consultation requirement. The other factor there is that we wouldn't be looking for a gap to consult until around March. That's even the gambling one that's up at the moment, we're looking at turning around February, March to get that back into place. So it may be that it's preferable that we do some comms that link people to those resources and teach people about the pines in the absence of that. Or that we extend this into say mid next year when there's a gap in consultation and then program it when we've got a gap, but people can focus on it. Because if the consultation is to educate, the time that's not going to happen is only some businesses.
And just on consultation, obviously March will have the LDP. At some stage, we have to consult on the water services industry, whatever we do, status quo or whatever. So there's a couple of really chunky consultations in there that start kicking in that sort of March period onwards.
Either way, a lost opportunity. We don't find some way to try and help our community understand this issue, because they don't.
Can partner in that with someone who really understands the issue and is incredibly passionate about spreading the word.
That's my sole reason for saying, well, actually, we're going to do better. Give us a chance.
As well as that this council does sponsor the Wild and Conifer to the actual sale, 20,000 to help us with the education of it. And so I think that's something we could work harder and try and work those dollars harder to keep educating as well. So
just one day someone might say that I understand that trees that are planted actually are considered to be wild, and even though they were planted. At the moment, there's just no acceptance or understanding. Otherwise, it's no wonder why, is it? They're planted, they're not wild, and they're planted.
But the variety is wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
The question is, rural New Zealand's been doing this for 10 or 15 years, getting involved in conifers, and the town should follow suit. As simple as that. If they're on anything, they've got to go.
You don't have to look too far to see hillscape around Alexandria.
Oh, absolute change.
Green.
Yeah, and I know we've just had in the Great Sticks Basin there, there's tree breaks that have got some in them. But the DOC and regional council and farmers are taking them all out. So to me, it's a no-brainer. We should just take it from someone and over time, and they'll come back quickly. But it's just got to be dealt with. I reckon an option.
Recommendation. You're happy to move those, Stu? Thank you. Sally's happy to second those. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Yes.
Thank you. We're now going to be talking about libraries, page 195 with Alex. Oh, and Amy and David.
Tēnā koutou e Āwhina Whiwhiu, ngā mihi ngā te wā ki koutou katoa. He kotuko Rangatahi. I just wanted to greet you all, acknowledge the moment, and to say that in 20 years of local government, this is my first time executive female mayor, so congratulations. Thank you. In front of you all, so.
Welcome.
So we're bringing you the library's guidelines, and you will have seen a few references to policy in the document, and that is because I did a find and replace of word policy, and AI is not yet ready to replace us because it missed a few. So it is guidelines, just to be clear. We've got 3 pieces of work that govern our library policy framework. The first is a memorandum of understanding with QLBC that governs our shared service and how that operates. The second is our collection development framework. That's the content, what books we have and how we make those decisions. And this is the third piece. This is the really operational, gritty, how do people behave in our libraries? What do we expect and how do we treat incidents of poor behaviour? And this policy was due for renewal next year, but in response to incidents, we've had to move it forwards into this year. And as you can see, it's just got those 2 areas to help staff dealing with incidents of behaviour. The first is the code of conduct, or the standards of behaviour we expect. But nobody expects anybody to behave better because we have a sign on the wall telling them to. The purpose of that is to back staff when they're having to intervene, which they're having to do more so. And it is the same with the portion around unaccompanied children. We're not looking for a change of direction or to stop children using the library. We just need to tighten up what we do when children are left unattended for long periods of time, because that's started to happen, and it also covers lost property.
Thank you. Nigel.
Could I, just before we start talking about it, could I just correct a typo on page 195? You talk about a singular policy relating to library operations. And I think you actually mean single, don't you? Because singular doesn't mean it's got a different meaning.
That's one we thought was education.
And that mistake typo is repeated. That typo is repeated below. It's the same typo repeated. Under immediately under discussion.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments?
I don't know. No, I don't have another.
Yeah, yes.
When you talk about a code for, guide for staff for patrons, it sort of begs the question: do any of the libraries have problems with people that you don't want in the library that are not?
Yeah, I think, I guess we're seeing this nationally, even internationally, aggression is increasing. And, I think it's important for us to take a start to make sure we're clear on what we won't accept in our libraries or in any sort of community space, because we do have other patrons that might be there for quiet time or hourly, or we do have that real diverse range of people that come into our libraries. And so that's why these guidelines are really important to, I guess, provide that foundation for the community, but also support staff when it comes to making decisions and knowing what they will make decisions in the library.
I suppose my question is specific to the extent that do you have problems now with people you actually say you shouldn't be in this building?
Yeah, from time to time we do. Yeah. Yeah, and I think again in the last council workshop I gave an example of, examples here within this building, same in our pools. We do have them everywhere. So it's not it's not something of significant urgency that's happening on a daily basis, but it is starting.
It's something that,
Perfect. Any other questions or comments on that one? The recommendation A and B receives the report and adopts the library's guidelines for a 3-year period. If somebody's happy to move that. Thank you, Sally, and seconded. Thank you, Cheryl. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. I now hand over to Councillor Gillespie.
thank you. And we'll move to item 24.12.9, the gambling and board venue policy. Lee and Alex are going to take us through that. And if you just a reminder, you did hear in public forum this morning, a presentation from the lady from the Monica, yeah, but I think basically said, consider a cap or a single lid, and guess what? Something's prepared earlier. It's coming our way.
Planning process, and we got some feedback from Te Whatuora asking us to consider that at our next review, so we did, and that's what's in front of you today. This one is complex, it's full of competing needs. Local government has a really limited role. The policy tools we have aren't that great, and we're operating in the margins of legislation. So I apologise for the length of that report, and we did our best to sort through it and try to just give you the facts to make this decision. So the existing and current policy and approach that we have at the moment operates on the legislative baseline, basically. The minimum number of machines permitted, the location criteria, and the number of venues are the three tools that we have. And currently we're operating alongside the basic level of legislation with some controls around the proximity to a school, church, or another sensitive site. So our very first approach to this review was to try and make sure that everybody was doing what we thought they were doing and how it was operating. As you'll see in the attachments, that took us a year. Because this process is not transparent, there is no clear trail of the money in the team to where it goes. But to the best of our ability, we are satisfied that things are operating largely in line with legislation. The DIA has said that 40% return to the community in grants, because of that role of head officers and that role of GSP, we really should be expecting it to sit in the mid-30s as the percentage of money that's put into a machine that we're seeing back in the community. And when we got that first round of review and it was sitting at 18.23%, Lee and I were pretty ready to march into that. But accounting for GSP and several official information requests later, we're sitting in the mid-30s, on the low 30s, and we think that is about right. So the question from there isn't, is it operating as it should? It's, do we like the controls and is the right thing happening? We're asked / required under legislation to provide a social impact statement to show the harms associated with gambling, and that is no easy task in Central Otago because we have no specialised gambling support service here. There's also none in Queenstown, even though there's a casino. The closest support that you need, or there is the gambling helpline. And what that means is when we say the level of reported gambling harm in Central Otago is below the national average, we have to put a giant asterisk next to it that says the level of reported gambling harm in Central Otago is below the national average. And it is likely that we are finding less problem gamblers because there is less effort to do so. When we're looking at this act itself, or this piece of policy, it's covering two types of gambling. The first is board venues, which is those standalone TAB facilities. We don't have any, and the Act only allows council to control those standalone ones. We've got no say over a TAB in a pub, so we haven't spent a lot of time there. It's really working as it should. And the second is those pokie machines, which are specifically class 4 gambling. That is high risk, high turnover gambling. As Monica said this morning, approximately half of users are addicted or at risk of problem gambling with the pokie machine. They're uniquely insidious because of their design. The way that they work hits dopamine receptors, it causes more addiction than other machines. There's a social impact statement. I hope that satisfies that. And then the third thing we looked at was really the timing. Our reason for taking the status quo approach to date has been online gambling and that risk and how that weighs up against these pokie machines. There have been changes to that environment that might make a change in direction there. The main one being that partnership on TAB gambling with the international group Entain contains provisions for geo-blocking gambling in New Zealand. And we're now very quickly moving to a system of licensing and regulation. Again, we've been seeing a lot of gambling moving into that space with different controls, reduces that argument against the cell phone. And the second thing about timing is quite obviously the financial situation we find ourselves in is creating pressure for everybody, both problem gamblers and groups who rely on this funding. So our assessment
here is that a sinking lid would mean no new machines will be used, licensed in Central Otago. It would not cancel or remove any licenses tomorrow, so it therefore should not impact community funding. It should have quite a long leash. The caveat there being there's nothing under the Act that controls whether societies give that money back. They might say we put a sinking lid in and say, stuff you with it in your area. But other than that, these tools in front of us shouldn't impact any community funding in the short term, because those link for both licenses. So what it means in the long term, if you put in a sinking lid, it means we create no more opportunities for pokie machines in Central Otago. As existing licenses drop, they disappear, and eventually over time that lid sinks and it's gone. And there are a few caveats to that. An existing business can sell to somebody else. When I spoke to the DIA, you can have a license left for up to 6 months and have it still got back into place. So there's no guarantee that it would have any impact. And the other thing there is that the amount of profit per pokie machine is continuing to rise. So we could have a drop in machines, but still an increase in that profit. The other two tools, and then the only other two tools you have, is an absolute or a relative cap. And that's to say we can have either X number of machines or X number of venues. And you can either base that on a hard figure or relative to population. We didn't spend as much time there because we found there to be a few challenges with what that would mean to the value of licenses. If we were to suddenly say there's only 3 more pokie machines allowed in Central Otago, suddenly there's a premium on those last 3 licensed slots. And as it stands, we haven't had an application in 5 years, 5 to 6 years. So that is all of the detail we have for you, but we appreciate it's a tricky one. So, questions?
Thanks, Alex, and it's a pretty comprehensive report. Tell me, how much does this cost us as a council to oversee, provide oversight to administer big, or just the review of the policy?
It's just the review of the policy. It's the time, and Alex said more time than mine, for being honest, Neil, in doing the research for this, because it is unpicking the complexities of where that money is actually going, to make sure that we're feeling comfortable with what we're recommending to today, basically, but also looking at what can you do to try and improve the situation in relation to specific pokie machines, whilst being cognizant of the financial constraints on our communities at the moment, and that moral challenge in relation to going and providing grants for smaller clubs and with the level of funding that we get. So we're trying to find that balance in relation to all of them.
Any questions? Lots.
Yeah.
Lots. Really?
Yes. Mike, I don't want to see a sinking lid in it, and the research that the Ministry of Health gave us today, that 7 people have got an addiction problem. There'll be more than 7 people have addiction to social recreational drugs than have to gambling. The wee country pubs or the wee areas and the likes of ours where that money can and will be used in our facilities. And I'm not going to say that probably the biggest beneficiaries of it are the small rural communities. And one of the biggest groups are probably our high net worth groups that are invested in that gambling, or so-called recreational use of the poker machines. I'm saying the sharing industry in Ranfurly, well resourced, and what they do contribute a lot. So I just think it's a bit of a concern, and talking about the TAB. The TAB, the racing industry, as fraternity, is a massive net contributor to the New Zealand economy.
There will be no change to the racing.
No, but it's still a gambling in the put in the pocket of, I guess I'm saying. And I'll go back to our little Wedderburn Community Association. We used to have a lot of shares, and we funded everything from kids' special needs to sports clubs, and we lost that. And some of the pubs will be uneconomic if they do not have their gaming machines. And the demise of businesses in those will, and not just there. And if you take the growth, we've got a sinking lid, and they've problem doubling in size in 20 years. And a part of the community can't be.
Just to correct, there were 7 new clients, there was 28 people helping. 7 new clients.
Yeah, well, if we dive into deep enough to a local hospital service or a medical service, there'll be 7 or 8 That's pretty good volunteer evidence and a lot.
To answer your, I appreciate the concerns that you've got. I think, what I said explains to say that, if we adopt the recommendation for today, consult on, we're going to listen to the community and what we're saying in that space as well, but it wouldn't affect directly. Those are in place today, that remains there today. Obviously, we're looking at growth and we can consider what that picture looks like and understanding in future years. And if we're hearing that that's what we need to be considering in that point in time, that's a different conversation for potentially.
In backing up that means when we review this policy next, which is in how many years' time? 3, and things have changed markedly, we can reverse. It doesn't have to stay at single lids. And so we're going through a consultation process, said, let's put a single lid policy in place. And then because of the 3-year review, you provide yourself the ability to say, this is not working for these reasons here. And I think that's, well, my logic say that's probably a better way for the community to say we want to see more gambling opportunities because we've got bigger and whatever. The good thing about this is not set in stone. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one. And first I had a comment. Some of those numbers really surprised me. $4.5 million out of people's pockets in Central Otago. And a lot of it people that can't afford for that money to come out of their pockets. And then I was really surprised by that My Lotto versus Sky City Online. I thought My Lotto would be far and above the biggest platform, but not even close. I just wondered on page 224, which is page 3 of the policy, it says close to kindies, schools, churches. Do we need to define what close to is, or is there a definition of that?
We would need to once uploaded. Yeah, we should. The reason we haven't drilled down to that definition is that if we place something in the middle place, it becomes less relevant. If we retain the status quo, and I would recommend we look quite heavily at that location provisions.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just started an exact question.
Would you?
Yeah.
You can take that up with her later on then.
Yeah.
Stu.
With policy, we don't have no idea knowing what happened online gambling in the first time.
No.
And that is a huge challenge. I mean, I'm seeing the adverts of Betcha and such things. I just seem to be getting more and more of that. This is very, very concise in relation to what we're able to.
And I guess by putting pressure on this, it's going to drive that problem.
Cool.
The way that we looked at this is saying within our control, we've got some levers against one form of gambling. I don't even believe that those levers that the Board Venue Act has really given us any teeth on TAP. So the only form of gambling we really have an intervention on is this high risk, high turnover class 4 electronic poker machine gambling. But we did also put the question to a couple of the gaming societies of if they'd be willing to put some of that funding towards that gap in health services. But they were quite firmly of the opinion that that's a budget or a responsibility. So in that window, we thought we'd bring us to like this.
Any other questions? Page 201, recommendations. We received the report, direct staff to engage with the community on a proposal to introduce single approach to classical gambling, approve the draft statement of proposal consultation, and appoint 2 members to hear submissions if required. Have to move. We need to you need to include 2 members to hear submissions if required. No reason why you couldn't be one if you want to move that you be one. Anybody want to volunteer to be the second one, or? Yeah. Tracy? Fine. Happy? Anybody else? No? So Martin's moved that and Dee Wood to appoint himself and Councillor Patterson to hear submissions if required. Someone like to second that? I heard the timer. Thank you. Any more questions, discussion, comments, observations? I'll put that all in favour. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. And you're up. Let's move to item 24.12.10, private plan change 23, Hartley Road Partnership. And you heard from Mr. Dimmock in public forum about this particular agenda item. twice in one day, we've got you back already. Hey, you're gonna drop in the hot seat and make her present it, eh? Oh, no, Peter did a good job.
I'll just give you a rough outline anyway, taking us through. So, the proposal is to rezone a 6 block on Springvale Road and State Highway 85. There's no proposed changes to the industrial provisions, other than in relation to where access is from. So no direct access onto the State Highway and no direct access onto Springvale Road and the Hefton to Road intersection. And the provision of landscaping bundling around the outside, and that's particularly relevant in terms of the adjacent cemetery reserve.
We don't want to upset people.
No, so there'll be funding if they get. So the decision for council today is one of receipt and not of merit. This is just whether or not you accept the plan change. Clause 25, as pointed out once, the Lincoln public session, there's certain criteria in which you can decline to accept it. I'm not really that that criteria is not met, so there's no reason to decline. So the options available to council are to deal with it as though it was a plan change initiated by council and adopt it, deal with it as a resource consent, which in this instance would not be appropriate given the current zoning, which is rural, would be really challenging to undertake the activities proposed from there. Or to accept the request and process it as a private plan change. That is my recommendations, to accept it and process it as a private plan change. All costs would be borne by the requester, and as Mr. Bennett indicated this morning, they could be with that. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Reasonably straightforward. Recommendations are that we receive the report and accept the level of significance and resolves the plan change 23 be accepted under Schedule 1 and a whole lot of things that follow that, and notified of the private plan change under Schedule 1 clause 26. Tracy will move it, Sarah will second it. Any questions before we do? All in favour? Against? Carried. And with that, I'll hand back to the chair.
And we are going to a short break.
Just make sure it's there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Stand by for 30 seconds.
Now, we have Bob's, finally, we're halfway through the, terminal. So you now have access to the building, so I will get them for you. So we didn't want to peak too early in the team.
How long have you been council for? So you've or have you already got one?
No,
I know, all these years.
all these years of finding trust from the fall.
So does that mean we should be extra in the front
Okay,
door?
perfect. We'll stop now for lunch and we will be back here 1:10 for the museum discussion in public forum.
Excellent.
1:10.